Have you ever noticed how some grandparents seem to carry a light around with them? They walk into a room, and it feels brighter. Their laughter feels genuine, their hugs feel deeper, and somehow, even when life throws them challenges, they don't let bitterness take over. You look at them and think, wow, I want to be like that. But then, on the other hand, we've all seen grandparents who seem weighed down by frustration or regrets. They're quick to complain, slow to forgive, and often seem stuck in what went wrong instead of what's still right. It's not about circumstances, because I've seen people with very little who radiate joy, and others who have plenty but never seem satisfied. The difference isn't about what they do. It's often about what they don't do. That's what I want to talk about today. If you're a grandparent, or simply someone in the later chapters of life who wants to feel lighter and happier, I want to share 4 things truly happy grandparents never do. And believe me, these aren't complicated or impossible. They're simple shifts that make all the difference. Let's start with the first one. Truly happy grandparents never cling to the past in a way that steals from the present. Now, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful to look back at the good times. We all love sharing stories from when our kids were little, or remembering the music, the fashion, or even the silly mistakes we made in our 20s. Memories are treasures. But where we can get stuck is when we start living more in the past than in the moment. Have you ever caught yourself saying, things were better back then? Or maybe comparing today's world to the way things used to be, and feeling like nothing now measures up? When that becomes a habit, it creates a heaviness. Our grandkids don't need us to tell them the world is falling apart or that their generation has it wrong. What they need is our presence. They need us to laugh with them over a silly TikTok they want to show, to listen to their music even if it's different from ours, and to make new memories with them now, not just replay old ones in our heads. One grandmother I know, she lost her husband young. She could have spent the next decade saying, my best years are behind me. But instead, she said, I want my grandchildren to know me as more than someone who's grieving. I want them to know me as someone who's still alive. And she leaned into the present. She learned to bake bread from YouTube videos, she got down on the floor to play Legos, and when her granddaughter wanted to try painting, she bought brushes and painted right alongside her. Her secret wasn't forgetting the past. It was not letting the past become more real than the life still happening right in front of her. Now, the second thing happy grandparents never do is hold grudges. Let's be honest, by the time we reach our 60s, 70s, or beyond, we've all had people hurt us. Family members, friends, even strangers. Some wounds cut deep. But here's the thing, holding on to resentment is like carrying around a heavy backpack that nobody else can see. At first, you think you can handle it. But year after year, it weighs you down until you forget what it feels like to walk lightly. Happy grandparents don't carry that backpack. They put it down. That doesn't mean they let people walk all over them. It doesn't mean they pretend the pain didn't happen. It means they choose peace over poison. Forgiveness isn't saying, what you did was okay. Forgiveness is saying, I won't let what you did rob me of my joy any longer. I once heard an older man say, bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And isn't that true? The people we resent often move on with their lives. We're the ones left stewing. Meanwhile, the years pass, and we lose out on laughter, love, and connection, all because of a wound that never got released. But imagine the freedom of letting go. Imagine choosing to love your children and grandchildren without that old cloud hanging over you. I know a grandfather who didn't speak to his brother for 20 years. 20 years. They fought over an inheritance, and neither wanted to budge. Finally, one day he said, this fight has cost me 2 decades of laughter with my brother. And for what? He picked up the phone, called him, and said, let's start fresh. They never got back those 20 years, but they did get back a bond that both men needed in their final chapters. That's the kind of courage happy grandparents have, the courage to release instead of resent. And let me tell you, when your grandkids see you doing that, it teaches them something priceless. They learn that life is too short for grudges, that relationships matter more than being right, and that peace is worth pursuing. You may not realize it, But by choosing forgiveness, you're shaping the way the next generation will live their lives too. So, think about this for a moment. Are there memories from the past that you've been clinging to so tightly that they keep you from enjoying the present? Are there grudges you've been carrying that weigh down your spirit? Truly happy grandparents know they don't have to live that way. They know joy is lighter, forgiveness is freeing, and presence is more powerful than nostalgia. And when you start practicing that, your whole world begins to feel brighter, not because the problems disappear, but because you've made space for happiness to take root. If you're still watching and feel that these insights are meaningful, please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. When you really think about it, happiness in our later years isn't about how much we own, or even about how long we live. It's about how much peace and joy we create along the way. And that brings me to the third thing truly happy grandparents never do. They never try to control everything and everyone around them. Now, if we're being honest, control is something we all wrestle with. We've lived long lives, we've seen a lot, and we usually believe we know what's best. After all, we've raised children, worked jobs, built homes, and weathered storms. So of course we feel like we've earned the right to give advice or to tell people how things should be done. But here's the truth, the more we try to control, the more frustrated and disappointed we become. Think about it. We can't control how our grown children raise their kids. We can't control whether our grandchildren listen to the same music we love or whether they spend more time on phones than outside. We can't control what the world is turning into or even what tomorrow will bring. But oh, how often do we try? And every time it doesn't go the way we think it should, we feel stressed, upset, or even bitter. Happy grandparents learn a different way. They let go of the illusion of control and instead choose influence through love. There's a big difference. Control pushes people away. Influence draws them closer. If you constantly tell your daughter how she should cook, or your son how he should parent, or your grandchild how they should dress, chances are they'll tune you out. But if you show kindness, share wisdom gently when asked, and live in a way that radiates peace, people will be drawn to you. They'll want to listen, not because you forced them to, but because your presence speaks louder than your words. I remember hearing a story about a grandmother who desperately wanted her teenage granddaughter to go to church. She nagged her every week, lectured her, even guilted her. And what did the granddaughter do? She resisted even more. Finally, this grandmother realized she was pushing too hard. Instead of arguing, she decided to simply live out her values. She invited her granddaughter to join her on Sundays but didn't demand it. She cooked her favorite meals, listened to her stories, and loved her unconditionally. Slowly, something shifted. The granddaughter saw the peace and joy her grandmother carried and began to ask questions. One Sunday, she joined her, not out of pressure, but out of curiosity and love. That's the power of letting go of control. And it's not just about family. This lesson stretches into every area of life. We can't control politics, the economy, or even our health completely. But we can control our attitude, our words, and our choices. We can choose joy instead of worry. We can choose gratitude instead of complaining. And in doing so, we show our loved ones that happiness isn't about everything going perfectly, it's about finding peace in the midst of imperfection. Now, closely tied to this is the fourth thing truly happy grandparents never do: they never stop growing. You might think growing is something for the young, for kids learning to walk, for teenagers figuring out who they are, or for young adults building careers. But the happiest people I've ever met in their 70s, 80s, even 90s, are the ones who never decided they were done. They keep learning, they keep laughing, they keep trying new things. I know an 82-year-old grandfather who decided to learn how to play the guitar. He'd never touched one before in his life. His family thought he was joking. But he bought a used guitar, watched videos online, and practiced every day. He wasn't trying to become a rock star. He just wanted to learn something new, to challenge his brain, to bring music into his home. And you know what? He did it. He played a song at his granddaughter's birthday party, and she said it was one of the most special moments she'd ever had with him. That's the magic of growth. It keeps us alive inside. The moment we say, "I'm too old for this," or "it's too late to start," we begin shrinking instead of expanding. Happy grandparents don't let age limit their curiosity. They read books, they learn technology, they travel when they can, or even just explore new hobbies at home. They understand that every day is a gift, and every gift deserves to be opened with wonder. And it doesn't always have to be something big. Growth can be as simple as trying a new recipe, taking a walk in a different park, joining a book club, or learning how to video chat so you can see your grandchildren's faces across the miles. Each little step keeps the mind sharp, the spirit young, and the heart open. But perhaps the most important part of growth is this: it reminds us that life isn't finished just because we're older. It tells our children and grandchildren that they, too, can keep dreaming at any age. When they see us learning, adapting, and thriving, it gives them hope that their own future can be full of life, not fear. So let's pause here. Think about these truths. Happy grandparents never cling so tightly to control that they lose connection. And they never stop growing, no matter how many birthdays have passed. Instead, they let go, they adapt, they learn, and they keep their hearts wide open to the beauty of life. We've walked through 4 things truly happy grandparents never do. They never dwell on the past, they never isolate themselves, they never try to control everyone and everything, and they never stop growing. Now let's tie these lessons together into something you can carry with you each day. You see, happiness at this stage of life isn't about having the perfect family, perfect health, or perfect circumstances. Life has always been unpredictable, and it still is. But happy grandparents understand that joy is not something that just happens to us. It's something we choose and cultivate, little by little, through the way we live. Think about the first lesson again, not dwelling on the past. That doesn't mean we erase our history. In fact, our memories are treasures. They shape us, they remind us of how far we've come. But happy grandparents don't sit in yesterday's chair forever. They stand up, look around, and see what's possible today. They say, "I've lived a lot of life, but I still have more to live." That shift, from regret to gratitude, brings peace like nothing else can. And then there's the second lesson, refusing to isolate. The older we get, the easier it is to pull back, to feel like the world doesn't need us anymore. But the truth is, the world needs us more than ever. Our families need our stories, our wisdom, our laughter. Our friends need our presence, our encouragement, our companionship. Even strangers benefit when we smile at them in the grocery store or strike up a conversation at the park. Every act of connection is like lighting a little candle in the dark, for them and for us. The third lesson, letting go of control, is maybe the hardest of all. We've built habits over decades. We want to protect our loved ones, to keep them safe, to steer them in the right direction. But happy grandparents realize that love without control is the greatest gift. It gives space for children and grandchildren to grow. It leaves room for mistakes, yes, but also for growth, resilience, and learning. When we stop trying to steer every ship, we find more time to sail our own with freedom and joy. And finally, that beautiful fourth lesson, never stop growing. Imagine a grandparent at 75 learning to paint, or a grandmother at 85 joining a dance class, or a grandfather at 90 picking up new words in a foreign language. Do they stumble? Of course. But their spirit shines so brightly because they're saying to the world, "I'm still here. I'm still learning. I'm still alive." And that spirit is contagious. It inspires everyone around them to believe in possibilities, not limitations. Now, let's put all of this into something practical. How can you, starting today, weave these lessons into your own life? Start small. Each morning, take a moment to let go of yesterday. Whisper to yourself, "Today is a gift." That one thought sets a tone of gratitude. Next, reach out. Call an old friend, invite a neighbor for coffee, or simply talk with your grandchild about their day. Connection doesn't have to be complicated, it just has to be consistent. Then, when the urge comes to control, to correct, to criticize, or to dictate, pause. Ask yourself, am I building a wall or a bridge right now? If it's a wall, step back and choose love instead. You'll be amazed at how much lighter you feel when you let go. And finally, grow. Pick something you've never tried before and give yourself permission to begin. Maybe it's a puzzle, a recipe, a new walking route, or even learning how to use that piece of technology that's been intimidating you. Growth isn't about mastery, it's about movement. Every little step forward keeps your heart young. The truth is, happy grandparents aren't perfect people. They've made mistakes, faced losses, and felt pain, just like everyone else. But they've chosen a different path. Instead of shrinking with age, they expand. Instead of closing doors, they open them. Instead of waiting for happiness to arrive, they create it in their everyday choices. And here's the most beautiful part, happiness doesn't stay with you alone. When you live this way, your children notice. Your grandchildren notice. Your friends notice. You become a living example that joy is possible at any age. That life doesn't end at retirement, it just shifts into a new, beautiful season. So the next time you catch yourself looking back with regret, or sitting alone too long, or trying to control what isn't yours to control, remember these 4 truths. Step into today with gratitude. Reach out with love. Let go with grace. Grow with courage. You've already lived many chapters, but the story isn't over. In fact, some of the most joyful, inspiring, laughter-filled pages can still be written. And here's the good news, you hold the pen. So go on. Be that grandparent whose smile is contagious. Be the one whose presence is a comfort, whose stories are a treasure, and whose spirit shines brighter with every passing year. Happiness isn't something you find, it's something you choose. And you, my friend, can choose it today. Thank you for spending time with us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned from this video and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your insights mean a lot to us and give us the motivation to keep spreading positivity and practical advice. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. Your support truly helps us continue creating meaningful content that informs, inspires, and uplifts. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.